We're live now. We're live now. We're live now. We're live now.
FutureSkills Prime is a digital skilling initiative brought to all Indian citizens from the Ministry of IT, Government of India, and NASSCOM, the Industry Association for IT. It has the lofty vision of making India the global hub of talent in the emerging technologies. With India's $1 trillion digital opportunity, FutureSkills Prime there is a need to build digital fluency and capabilities across all industries and sectors. Content on FutureSkills Prime ranges from short, expert-curated awareness-building learning pathways to complete courses that have been defined by industry and curriculum that is approved by aligned to government standards. The platform uses cutting-edge tools like badges, certification, gamification. Prime ranges from short, expert-curated awareness.
Sorry for the echo. I'll just fix it. Give me a minute.
And incentives to constantly motivate the learner. FutureSkills Prime has content especially designed for novices who are just beginning their digital journey and professionals who want to apply it in their jobs. The FutureSkills Prime ecosystem demonstrates India's ambition to leap into the digital future where technology is at the core of everything. An affordable and credible ecosystem created through a public-private partnership of government and industry, it seeks to be at the forefront of the reskilling revolution necessary to make India the talent nation for digital tech. So take the leap and join in this revolution and start learning today.
Hi everyone, good evening. I welcome all of you to this bootcamp on IoT. So it is with great privilege I wanted to introduce you to Mr. Ashish Gupta. Ashish is an IoT leader with expertise in product lifestyle management, hardware solution co-design, and systems design. He has extensive experience in the semiconductor and consumer electronic industry, as well as tech product startups building smart, connected computing devices. He's passionate about bringing new products to market and enjoys being a technical trainer. Ashish has worked with organizations like Intel, IEEE, Solitron Technologies, Learning Labs, and has done his MTech from IIIT Bangalore. His current role, he heads IoT program at Jigsaw Academy and oversees the design and development of industry-relevant IoT learning content and curriculum. He is a member of the IoT working group for NASSCOM SSC and is an experienced speaker and has presented at many prestigious events like IoT Congress, IoT Forum South Africa, Convergence India, etc. So I take this pleasure to introducing Ashish, who will be taking you guys in a very hands-on practical IoT workshop for the next 2.5 hours. So with this, I hand it over to Ashish. Hope you all enjoy the next 2.5 hours with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vaishali. First of all, am I audible? So I want to hear from the audience, guys. If you can hear me, just say yes. All right, great. I have Rajesh, Sandeep, a lot of people here. Okay, I got it. You can hear me now. Stop. So we are very happy to have you all. First of all, I want to thank NASCOM. Uh, NASCOM Future Skills initiative is amazing. They have taken up a really tough job of upskilling a lot of us, lakhs of people at a large scale, and that too in some of the most, I would say, difficult areas, because the areas that they have chosen are all related to emerging tech, whether it's Internet of Things, whether it's cloud computing, whether it's cybersecurity, and difficult because there's not too much of content and books which exist already. So a lot of power to NASCOM and the team that I work very closely with. They work tirelessly day and out to make possible very low cost and a lot of times free content available for a large audience, so that all of us can benefit by way of these learning experiences and really start contributing towards emerging technologies. So I really have a lot of respect for the work they do at NASCOM. I also thank Vaishali for such a generous introduction. Basically, I'm an engineer at heart, and I really like tinkering with electronics and building products out of electronic systems. And now really exciting times of connecting these devices and electronic smart devices to the internet and start leveraging cloud and analytics. This is the new age we are in, and this is really interesting and exciting because it's enabling new use cases. So with that, let's just get started. Let me share my screen, and after that I want to ask you whether you can see my screen. So again, I want to hear from you if you can see my screen. All right, great. I'm getting a lot of yes messages here. So I want to first very quickly lay out what we're going to do today, how we're going to spend the next 2.5 hours. So we are going to discuss in a great deal about, first of all, various types of IoT applications. Okay. In 2.5 hours, I cannot make you expert in IoT. I cannot make you learn any specific area within IoT to a level that I would say that you can, you start doing projects immediately. It's a very vast subject and it needs a lot of practice and a lot of work at your end. But I think for this 2.5 hours, my goal is to make sure that you understand why IoT is important, where it is coming from, what are the most important applications and relevance for IoT. Because if you understand that, or if you're exposed to what the various applications of IoT are, then I think you will start getting ideas for different projects, and then you will start getting ideas for where you can apply IoT. So if you're a student, it directly helps on a lot of project work that you can do within your current BTech or MTech course that you're doing. If you're a working professional, chances are that you'll be having a lot of on-the-job opportunities where you can integrate some IoT stuff. So I think almost more than half of today's time, we are going to budget for that. Next, I also want to very strongly emphasize some of the challenges that we are seeing in the growth of IoT, specifically IoT security. It is very important that anybody getting started on IoT, gets to start thinking about IoT security early on. Hence, we talk about that. We'll talk about various different IoT job roles which are coming in and what kind of career path you can hope for. And then after that, we will get into a little bit more exciting portion of this talk. I will just show you a very simple IoT application that I have put together using of my phone, which has interesting sensors. We'll ship that data to cloud, then we'll play with that data in the cloud, and we'll enable a simple use case. So this is what we have in store for today. At any point in time, please feel free to ask me any questions. My only suggestion is keep the questions relevant to whatever we are talking about at that point in time. And also, I will keep on taking up question as and when I see in the chat window. In case it seems more appropriate to answer that question a little later, I'll skip it and I'll come back to it later. Or it'll automatically get answered in the course of the next 2.5 hours. All right, great. So with that out of the way, we have a clarity on what exactly we're going to discuss today. Let me start with what exactly is IoT. So let me hear from the audience. What do you think is IoT? Come on. Internet of Things. Yeah, we all know IoT is Internet of Things. Can you give me a little bit more? Connected devices over the internet. Yeah. What kind of devices? Making things talk. Things connected to the, but what kind of things? So a lot of you are talking about things connected to the internet. What kind of things are we talking about here? Electronic devices connected over internet. Okay, I want specific examples. Home appliances. Someone says home appliances. What kind of home appliances? Yeah, physical things, home appliances. Okay, TV, fridge, lighting, smart TV, cars. Okay, great. So we've discussed a lot of home appliances. What about outside home? What kind of other devices? Air conditioners, cars. Okay, fine. Cars, buses, and trucks. What more? Buildings. Someone says buildings. Someone says water sprinkler. People say street lights, Tesla car, security cameras, sensors, GPS devices. Okay, that's cool. Digital watches, grids. Someone said electric grids. Okay, this is interesting. So yeah, okay. Hold on. So traffic lights, yeah, tons of answers. Great, thanks. But why? So I think we are all very clear on the kind of devices that are being connected to the internet, and hence we say that it's Internet of Things now. And there are lots of numbers that you would keep seeing in the market, right? You would get predictions from people like Gartner, which said that by 2020 there'll be 50 billion devices on the planet connected to the internet. Well, there are not 50, but still there are more devices than there are humans on the planet connected to the internet. So I think there are about 7 to 8 billion people on the planet, maybe 9. There are easily tens of connected devices to the internet on the planet. Okay, so and then there is all sorts of predictions which are now coming true. Okay, so it says 13 billion people. Fine, it's definitely more than that. So lot of money, lot of industry resource industry experts, as well as marketing agency, business forecasting agencies, have prescribed interesting numbers. So for example, Accenture said that the world economy will make about $14.2 trillion from IoT by 2030, right? And then Business Insider said that for the next 5 years, $6 trillion of money is being budgeted for IoT devices. So there's a lot of money also being associated with IoT. People saying that you will be able to save a lot of money if you deploy many IoT applications, right? So why is that so? That is also something that we should need to look for when it comes to IoT, right? So, but before we start discussing about IoT, right, I want to take you back a little bit. It's very important to understand where we are coming from if we have to really look at where we are going. So many times you would also see that IoT is being touted as the fourth industrial revolution, right? So why is that so? So I basically have coined the three digital revolutions which happened before IoT, which have really caused the strong rise and growth of IoT, right? So I want to take you through each one of those digital revolutions before we come to talk about IoT. And I also want you to think about the killer applications which became famous with each digital revolution. So this whole thing started with the late 70s. That's the time when people did not have personal computers. It's very difficult for people like us to imagine that scenario, but that was the case. There were no personal computers. Computers used to be giant machines which were housed in big buildings and big rooms. They needed a lot of electricity. In fact, there were jokes that if you switch on the computer, half the city's power supply needs to be routed to power it up. There were rooms and rooms and stacks of electronics. People would walk through computers. They were mostly being used for applications like weather forecasting by meteorological departments. And it was also the other big customers of computers at that point in time were the defense guys, military, trying to calculate the trajectories of bombs and missiles. Those are the primary applications of computer. At that point in time, people did not think that everybody will have a computer or will have a use for a computer. At that point in time, the then IBM CEO had very famously, or rather infamously, said that there is probably a world market for only 5 computers. In today, each one of us personally owns or operates a computer. I have my laptop, my office laptop, my home PC. I have my phone, which is almost a general purpose computer now. So You have your TV. TV is also a full-fledged computer. You can consume content primarily for it. You can browse internet, playstations. All of these are different shapes and forms of computers. So all of us use, at least come in contact with 5 computers every day. Because then IBM CEO could be farther from the truth at that point in time. So it was in the late 70s era, 77, 78 time frame when couple of people said, oh, we want to have computers for ourselves. At that point in time, they did not know what they will do with them, but they were very excited to invent computers for themselves. And that's where the first popular or commercially popular personal computer was the Apple II. Apple One was the first, I would say, personal computer with a display attached to it, a keyboard that you can write to it, which people started selling. And Apple II was the more refined version of Apple One, and that became a big hit. And that's what basically popularized this product, popularized the entire category of personal computers. Someone is saying there is voice break, so I want to take a check with everybody else. Does everybody feel that my voice is breaking? Okay. Others are saying no. So please check your connection. Thank you. So Apple II was the most popular, or the first was very popular personal computer, commercially successful product, which people bought. People still were not using it a lot. People were probably using it for running some spreadsheets, writing some documents, recipes, personal stuff, but not too much of enterprise stuff. But it became popular. And once Apple II became popular, IBM took notice of Apple II and they said, okay, we also want to have a personal computer. Till that point, they only used to sell giant machines to big businesses. Now, when Apple put together a personal computer, they did not have an operating system, and they reached out to a small startup at that point in time. And that startup was which company? What was that company to whom IBM turned to for the operating system? History quiz. Microsoft. Absolutely right. So at that point in time, Microsoft was just Bill Gates and Paul Allen, and there's a very famous meeting which happened between the IBM executives and Microsoft. So IBM executives at that point in time were looking at Microsoft as just as a vendor or a component vendor or supplier. And Bill Gates said to them that, look, we will give you the operating system for your computer, but we should be able to license it out to other people. Meaning, you can take our software and put it in your computer, but you should allow us to be able to sell this software independently to other hardware manufacturers also. At that point in time, the concept of selling software separately apart from the hardware was not at all established. It was an alien concept. But and IBM guys refused to see the future in that. They said, we don't care. Why the hell would anyone buy your software, your operating system without the hardware? Anyways, it won't work on other hardwares. But this is the single most important point in the history of software and computing world, which led to the rise of the first software product company, Microsoft. Right? That's the genius of Bill Gates. And since that point in time, we had a very strong decades of era wherein we had continuous improvements in our computing systems. Year on year, we would have upgraded better, faster, cheaper, lower power consuming, smaller processors from Intel, and not always, but mostly better operating systems from Microsoft, right? So the era of Wintel, Windows operating system and Intel processors came about. This was a huge, I would say, first piece of digital revolution. And what were people doing with these computers? At work, people were using these for spreadsheets, for PowerPoint, for documents, for custom applications, for managing their business activities. At home, people were doing it for writing documents, playing with stuff. Another very popular use case for the computer, the personal computer, which came about was desktop publishing. This became very hit with people who would be in marketing. They have to create documents and print them out. So before computers, everything had to be done by hand. Changes would take a lot of time. So desktop publishing was another killer application of computers. Now, in the 90s, okay, so that is the first digital revolution. The second digital revolution is the internet. So now, when enough of people had computers, people started to connect these with each other. Networking protocols started coming into picture. Infrastructure got established. Now, in this second one, where internet started, 1991 was the world's first website, which was set up by CERN, that famous physics lab based out of Europe. But 1993, a very important thing happened. World Wide Web was made free. Okay, so question to you: what does it mean when we say internet is free? Now, this is very important from the perspective of IoT. World Wide Web was declared to be free. What does that really mean? Okay, so I'm getting a lot of answers. Um, so people are saying you could make information available to anybody on the in the world, no charge for accessing website. Everyone can use search and be able to find and learn stuff. Everyone can access information anytime. It's not really free in the terms of money, right? You still have to pay for your hardware that you have to install. You still have to pay to your network service provider. So it is not free in terms of money, but it is free in terms of um, being democratic. There is no central agency which controls who all can get onto the internet. You do not have to apply for a license to come to the internet. You are not controlled by a regulatory body what content you can put up on the internet. I mean, different countries may have their own rules. For example, we all know about the Great Firewall of China. You know, you don't have access to many Google applications, Facebook, etc. Nothing works there. They've built equivalents of these services on their own, which works from within China. But that's a nation's decision. There is no overarching central body in the world which uh, controls what you can view, and much more importantly, what you can put up as an information point for others to view. Now, why is this important for Internet of Things? Because if there was a regulatory body through which you have to first of all apply for licenses and figure out whether you can connect to the internet, then connecting more and more devices to the internet would become even more difficult and slower process. But because internet is free, it doesn't really care what kind of data is coming onto the internet or who is publishing that data. So any person or any device, anything can come onto the internet and start publishing data. Very interesting and important feature of internet, which we have come to assume as a given, taken for granted, but not many countries do that. Not all countries do have that freedom. There are a lot of restrictions in some of them. So that's the second digital revolution. Now, what was the biggest killer application of the internet? So killer application, we say, is one application of a technology or a platform or a product which really led to the rise of that technology or product, which made it widespread. People are talking about social media, Facebook. People are talking about browsers and Google search engines, domains. Okay, this a person, my colleagues, yeah. So email, keep this as email. So that's, I think, um, the most important killer application of internet. Why? It's difficult for us to imagine the world where there were no emails, right? There were no email clients. How would you communicate with your office colleagues or to your friends? You would actually have to write letters by hand on a piece of paper. And on your desk, there will be two boxes. One box will be called in, the other box would be called out. And in your office, an office clerk will come. He will take all the documents which you have kept in the out box. He will look at the names of the people that you have marked in two, and he will actually circulate it to those people. And then there will be a section called CC. And how would you create copies of your letter? You would actually use carbon paper. That's where this CC in CC, when you're writing an email, and BCC means blind carbon copy. This is where these terms have actually come in from. Even inbox and outbox have coming from literally the physical way of exchanging letters and office memos. That was the world before internet. So when email came about, it was a godsend application, especially for enterprise applications. Office work, office communication was revolutionized with the help of internet. And then, of course, there is the facility to be able to find any information you want online. There's the facility to be able to find job openings, general knowledge, stuff like that. And also e-commerce is a big application of IoT, big application of internet. You have maps, you have digital payments, banking. All of these are critical killer applications of internet, right? Now, let's leave this aside. So second digital revolution was internet, and 2007 to 8 time frame, a very interesting thing happened. In 2007, a single product was launched, which completely changed the way you have been accessing internet. Can someone tell me which device was that? One single device. Absolutely right. It was the iPhone. Now, what's the difference between iPhone and some of the other phones which came before iPhone? The iPhone was designed from the ground up to be your primary internet communication device. Till that point, you would use maybe your phone for emails, especially people who use the Blackberries. They would use their phones to access email securely, but you would not use your phone to browse a complete website, right? Very limited use cases of internet existed. Your phones, even though they were computationally capable, did not have the right software to be able to load up complete websites, were not designed physically. They had small screens. But when Apple designed the first iPhone, they said the phone should be the primary internet communication device. Hence the full screen, hence full-fledged operating system, hence full-fledged browser running on the iPhone. So iPhone really changed the way people access internet. And a lot of the people who were not very savvy with accessing internet on the laptops, people from the older generation, have taken to mobile internet in a big way, right? So mobile internet became the de facto way for you to access the internet. What is the most important use case of a mobile phone today? A smartphone. It is not making phone calls for sure. Someone said social media. Social media is the number 2 most popular use case. WhatsApp, Facebook, etc. Online classes, banking. No, guys. Photos. Absolutely right. Thanks, sir, for us. The number 1 use case of smartphones today is clicking pictures. So you take the picture and then immediately you put it up on some social media handle or share it with friends over WhatsApp. And then there are payments and stuff like that. Making phone calls is not even one of the top 5 use cases. So that's how internet has basically really grown much faster with the help of mobile phones. So that's the third digital revolution, the rise of mobile phones. And also we have to thank the rise of mobile phones for giving us with ubiquitous networks. Mobile phones are the reason why we have pan India coverage of 4G data, right? You can go to any nook and corner of the country, you can still be connected with your phone, you can access the internet, you can send data remotely, you can do stuff, right? Okay, so that's the third digital revolution, and now with this is basically Akshay says, what is ubiquitous? Ubiquitous means widespread, which you find everywhere. Thanks, Dikshit. So these three things have given us some really good building blocks. Now, the first digital revolution, the hardware revolution, the PC world, decades of research that has gone into manufacturing efficiencies for electronics and innovation in hardware manufacturing has enabled us to invent new types of sensors, has brought down the cost of hardware so that we can incorporate new and interesting IoT devices. So we have to thank the first digital revolution for all the hardware work that has been done. We have to thank the internet revolution for setting up all the network infrastructure, right? Servers, your network protocol, your routers, your gateways, and stuff like that. The entire networking ecosystem, and then what resides on the network is all also thanks to the internet. What resides on the cloud is all thanks to the internet, right? It's the rise of the internet which helped us build those technologies. And third, as I said just now, it's the third digital revolution, which is the mobile phone revolution, which gave us these networks, these widespread, commonly available networks. Now, these are the three key critical ingredients which are giving the rise to the internet. The last piece I want to talk about on this slide is look at the speed at which each of these things have grown. So on the bottom, you will find two graphs. On the right hand side, there is one chart which shows the percentage of global web pages people accessed from mobile phones. In 2009, it was just 0.7%, less than 1% of the global internet traffic came from mobile phones. By 2018, it had already crossed more traffic coming from phones than your desktops and PCs. So 52%. Okay. And then look at on the left side, you have these two graphs. So the green, thick green line here, that's the rate of growth of mobile cellular users. And that's 80%. That means every year, the number of people coming online on the phone just doubles. And look at the overall growth of internet, it's about 30 to 40%. So the rate at which mobile internet is growing is almost double the rate at which overall internet is growing. Right? So the point that I'm trying to say is, with each successive revolution, the time it takes for the new revolution to become mainstream, to become popular, to adopt mass market adoption is much, much lesser. While the PC world, we can say it was about 40%, 40 years, 4 decades it has been in the making. Internet, you can say 90s, 2 decades. Mobile internet or the smartphone revolution, less than 5 years, right? So you're saying couple of decades, then a single decade, then you're saying half a decade. That's the rate at which new revolutions are picking up. And hence, if anyone thinks that IoT is still going to take too much time to pick up and blah, 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 I think they cannot be farther from the truth. So this slide was all about where we are coming from. Now I want to focus heavily on why. So we know what IoT is. It's connecting all these other devices to the internet. We know what are the building blocks. Now we want to see why it's such a big deal. Why do we want to connect on these devices to the internet? I mean, what is the fun of doing it, right? So let's take a look at tons of examples here and then try to figure out what are the killer applications of IoT, right? With each digital revolution, I told you it's important for us to keep track of what are the killer applications. And in IoT also, we want to have killer applications being thought out. Okay, so this here is FASTag. So okay, yes, RFID. Now, India, recently the government has mandated that if you're traveling on a highway within the country, whether it's a state highway or a national highway, all the toll booth plazas, you must have a FASTag sticker on your car. Otherwise, you will not be allowed, or you have to buy the sticker from there. Right now, this is an amazing example of Internet of Things. Now, how is that so? So you have your car, which otherwise is not a connected device as such. It's a mechanical, electromechanical device, or a piece of machinery. It's mostly a mechanical machinery, but it has a lot of electronics inside it. So to keep that part aside for now, but you just take a simple sticker which you can buy from a bank. So I bought mine from ICICI. It comes to me in a letter, and then I post it up on my windshield of the car, right? Now this sticker has some electrical circuitry built into it, and it has a unique identification. So on the toll booth plazas, you will have all these readers. Someone said about RFID. RFID is the name of the technology behind this use case. So those RFID readers, those readers can at a distance read what's the unique identification which is stored inside the sticker of the which is mounted on the car. That information is then passed via the internet, because the toll booth plaza is connected to the internet, via the internet to some central cloud server. And on the cloud server, there is some transaction which the ICICI bank makes. It checks whether I have enough account balance, and then it will deduct some money from my account. And then if the transaction has gone through, it will send a yes green light signal back to the toll booth plaza, and this boom barrier which is installed in the toll booth plaza, this will move off, right? So this is an excellent example of Internet of Things. So look at what they did. Just by installing a small sticker on your car, now they have been able to convert your electromechanical machinery into a digital object, because now it has a digital identification and it can be tracked in the system. And then you can be allowed to enter or not enter a particular highway based on how much wallet you have, right? So very interesting example of IoT. This falls into the category of smart cities. Next is smart tractor. So this is another interesting example of IoT. This is more serious example. So in a country like ours, where about 30%, sorry, 70% of the people, 30% maybe directly 30-40%, but indirectly up to 70% of Indians depend on agriculture. Agricultural implementations of IoT are very, very important. and it's becoming very popular. So this is a smart tractor. This was launched by Escorts in 2018. It's been 3 years now. This was but jointly designed by Escorts and companies like Microsoft, Bosch Sensor Tech, even Reliance Geo, and a few other tech companies. Right now, what does a tractor have got to do with Microsoft? So this is a special tractor. Can someone guess what is so special about this tractor? While you think about it, Rani says, but FASTag is not connected, right? Well, it is not connected, but it is turning your car into a digital artifact. Now it has a digital identity. Okay, people are saying driverless. No, we have enough of people in the country to drive tractors. Remotely control, we don't need that yet. Solar power, no. Has data of soil conditions. That's right. So this tractor has some interesting sensors built into it. It can measure the soil's moisture levels. It can measure the soil's fertilization levels. It can measure the amount of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium in the soil. It can also measure environmental temperature, pressure, humidity, those kind of parameters, right? Now, all of this data is very useful to do soil profiling. So they have a Reliance Geo link built into this. Via that, you send this data to a Microsoft hosted cloud application, which gives you all sorts of analytical reports. And then you have agricultural experts sitting up there in a call center. You also can make video calls to the farmer, and you can explain to him that, look, this is the quality of soil that you have in your farm, and hence these are the kind of crops of which you would be better suited to grow in this particular farm. Plus, imagine it's a 10-acre farm. There are different areas within the farm. Some areas may be more irrigated than the others. So you can also get that information as to which areas need more fertilization, which areas are already over fertilized. Or you can integrate with the weather service, and you can even decide whether I should switch on the tube well today or not, and water the field, because maybe there's rain coming tomorrow, so probably I don't need to do that. So such smart techniques are increasing the crop yield for farmers by a large factor. And these are sometimes called smart farming categories. Next is Internet of Cows. So even in animal husbandry and dairy farms, people are using IoT devices. So if you see this cow that has a small device which is hanging from the cow belt, now can you give me some guesses as to what all things this device could be measuring? Rashmi says GPS. Yes, for location tracking, that's right. Check if the cow is healthy or not. How? Body temperature? No, it doesn't do body temperature. Sounds from unusual. That's interesting. No. So this is just like a Fitbit band which you and I wear. This is something which is uh, almost like a health tracker, almost like a fitness tracker for the cow. It has an accelerometer. It has a GPS sensor. It does track location. So it has been observed that there is direct correlation between how much milk a cow is going to produce and how active the cow has been during the day or during the week. So if the cow has been pretty active, it's almost certain that the cow is expected to produce so much milk. But suddenly, let's say one day cow is much lesser active, 30, 40, 50% less active than what the cow is typically used to. That means there may be something wrong with the cow. Maybe the cow is sick. You need to pay special attention to the cow. And also you have a pretty good handle on how much milk your dairy farm is likely to produce, in the next week. There are other devices which dairy farms have started using, devices which can check the quality of the milk. So if you have better quality of milk with higher fat content, that can be sold at a premium. So a lot of different techniques and implementations used on IoT sensors and data analysis are being used in dairy farming industry. In fact, there was a company in Bangalore called Stellabs. They did it very successfully, and then they started helping out other dairy farms to do this. Next up is an example from healthcare. Now, a lot of us either in our family or at least know somebody who suffers from lifestyle diseases like diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is very, very common in India, even type 2. Okay, Ritesh says it is very great, but when will it be in India? Ritesh, the previous example, Stellabs is a Bangalore-based company. They're doing it in India. In fact, I think 99% of the examples I'm talking about today are all Indian examples. These are not overseas. Yes, so diabetes and blood pressure, high blood pressure, hypertension, hypotension, these are some lifestyle related diseases. Um, and and you don't have cure for these diseases, and ultimately what you have to do is you have to make sure that the patient has to manage their lifestyle, take regular medication, ensure that they're doing exercises and food intake appropriately. So for these kind of diseases, uh, you need to rely on continuous monitoring of bodily parameters, right? And we Indians are so good at going to the doctor and getting our blood pressure checked, isn't it? Or getting our blood sugar level checked. Yes, no. So it's a human tendency, right? And especially amongst Indians, we don't care much about our health too much. So this device here, this is a very small sensor. It's probably the size of a 10 rupee coin, although it looks pretty big in this picture. But you can see on the left hand side, this model, she's wearing it on her forearm. This thing has a micro needle and it can take blood samples, and it can measure up to 100 readings, about 96 readings per day of diabetes or blood sugar level, sorry. And it's painless, it is waterproof, so you can put it up on your forearm and you can just go about your everyday activities, no tension. And it can last on your forearm for about a month, for about 3 to 4 weeks. And then once a while, maybe every day or once in a couple of days, you can bring this handheld device on the right side close to the sensor, and this guy will download all the blood sugar level readings that it has taken into the handheld device. And from this handheld device, it can be shipped to your doctor. Now when you go to the doctor next time, he has a much better idea about how your blood sugar levels have been behaving throughout the week. You also have a much better idea about your own blood sugar levels, and hence you can make sure that you're controlling your lifestyle in an appropriate way, right? So similarly, there are many new types of sensors coming in, especially for blood pressure also. So some phones already had heart rate monitoring, but now you have blood pressure sensing also available. In fact, newer and newer semiconductor companies are coming up with newer and newer sensors which can be integrated into the phone to help measure more and more bodily parameters, especially which are related to these lifestyle diseases. In fact, this here I have another example of a new sensor which is coming up from this company called MediaTek is a cell phone processor manufacturer, and you look at what all this MediaTek sensor can do. They call it the 6-in-1 smartphone biosensor. It can measure your blood oxygen levels. It can measure blood pressure trends, not heart rate, guys. Blood pressure. Today you have to use that a cumbersome machine to get your blood pressure measured. This sensor right from your phone can do that. Obviously, it can do heart rate. It can do heart rate variability. This is very very critical for some of so people who suffer from some specific heart conditions. Then it can also do ECG and PPG, right? So very interesting device. It was already out before the COVID. I think COVID slowed down adoption of these things. I am very sure that in a very short span of time we'll have more and more phones come out integrated with this kind of sensors. So the sensor, it works by checking out your your body's electrical activity. So you need to hold it with 3 fingers, tips of the fingers at 3 points, and that's how it works and has a whole lot of intelligent sensing that it does. So healthcare, suffice it to say, is a very very critical area for IoT's applications, especially hospital management systems and wellness and OPD, patient care, and these kind of techniques. Yeah. Next, let's talk about consumer goods. So we all spoke about how we can connect our home appliances to the internet, right? But why should we connect them? So let's take a look at one example where of a very common home appliance is washing machine. So is washing machine a smart device? We do call them fully automatic machines, right? So they are smart. Can you guys just help me capture what all different sensors a washing machine has? Load sensor, absolutely right. Water level sensor, yes. Water temperature sensor also. Water door sensor. Water intake, meaning whether there is water in the tap or not. It also has a gyroscope because it keeps track of the fact whether you have kept this washing machine stable on your floor, or the floor it's at some angle, and hence it will disrupt the drums movement. Right? Flow sensor, absolutely right. Pressure sensor for the water. So a lot of sensors this thing has. And it also controls, right? So the intelligent circuitry within the washing machine, it controls some things. Now, what are the things that it controls? Solenoid valve, basically it controls the intake of water, absolutely right. It contains the RPM of the motor, speed of the motor. It contains the direction of the motor. You know, the LG washing machine, this is 6 motion. So forward, reverse. Water intakes, spin velocity, acceleration of spin, timing. Timing is an input, but timing in the sense that how long it'll do what. Yes, water intake, temperature of the water, all of that, right? Absolutely. So it is an intelligent device. It does have these inputs, it has outputs, and it decides how to control these outputs. So in this situation, if we connect this device to the internet, right? You have an intelligent circuitry in this washing machine. I'm going to connect it to the internet. What good can come out of it? What is a good, interesting use case that can come out of it? Okay, I'm getting a lot of interesting answers. Setting alarms, detergent per se purchase, reminders to put stuff into it, software updates, can track and send information to my mobile phone, power consumption variations due to various factors, alarms. So that's more all very interesting. So some of you spoke about maintenance, right? So let's talk about maintenance. Wouldn't it be cool that tomorrow, if I switch on my washing machine, and let's say there is some error in this washing machine, instead of me having to chase around the support and service guys, I get a call from the support agency, support person saying, Mr. Ashish, we have seen your washing machine is telling us that it tried to switch on the motor in the morning, but there's something wrong, and probably there's the relay which controls the motor, which is not turning on. And hence, I am going to send you a person in the afternoon who will come with the most likely part which I would have gone bad, and he will replace it instead of me chasing around a support service person, right? The washing machine is intelligent. It knows it has all these sensing inputs. It has controls. So basic information about what could be the area of trouble or error within the washing machine, it already knows. It generates error codes. But if you connect it to the internet, it can talk to the support service guys, and they are already intimated, and a proactive after sales service can be given to you. This is no fancy analytics. This is just simple information reporting. Information is already there in your washing machine. That's interesting. Now, another very important thing, which some of you have already alluded to, is preventive maintenance. Let me explain what preventive maintenance or proactive maintenance, or sometimes it's called predictive maintenance, right? So any physical device, let's say your ceiling fan, before your ceiling fan goes bad, breaks down, it will already start sending some signals to you. It will start making more noise. It may start heating up a lot. It may start vibrating a lot. It may take much longer for it to take that speed which it's supposed to take, so on and so forth. Right? So many mechanical. So a mechanical fault does not happen with the scenario that okay, it's running perfectly fine on day one, and then day two it just breaks down. It never happens that way. There is always some indications that you can measure. Disbalance, absolutely right. So if I mount a microphone and an accelerometer on a ceiling fan and a temperature sensor, this gives me pretty good set of inputs to see if on an average my ceiling fan is starting to remain hotter for a longer duration, or it is vibrating too much, right? Now, if I have past data where the same model of ceiling fan had failed and I have collected the sensor data when it actually gave way, then I have a good reference base points with me to compare my perfectly healthy fan's data with this data and probably try to guess when my fan is likely to go bad or when my fan is likely to break down. So if you want to predict when in the future timeline your machinery is going to fail, this is called predictive maintenance. And this is all very possible because before a machinery fails, long before it fails, it will start giving you these signals, these physical parameters, and these physical parameters can be absolutely tracked with the help of sensors. And then you can use advanced analytics, machine learning based algorithms to correlate this with older data and then come up with a prediction model. Okay, this is called predictive maintenance. Hence, it would be great if the support service guys give me a call and they say, Ashish, based on the past data, we think there is a 90% likelihood that your washing machine's motor is going to burn out in the next month. So if you are okay with it, maybe we'll send somebody to repair it or replace it even before it goes out. Or Mr. Ashish, we have realized your machine has told us that the ball bearings for a particular mechanism are vibrating too much. And it seems that in the next 3 weeks, these ball bearings are going to go out. We must replace these and we'll send you the right person. He will come with the part and replace it. So this is amazing. And this all is possible with the help of Internet of Things. One final piece about washing machine. This is the case from Whirlpool, right? So lack of after sales insight about the usage of your machine. So it's very important for a product manufacturer to keep track of how its product is being used in the market. So that information is critical for me to design better products in the future, right? It's very, very useful if I know how exactly my product is being used in the country, in different geographies, what kind of people are using what kind of features, so on and so forth. It helps me design better products. It helps me fine tune my sales and marketing activities better, right? Let's talk about washing machine, for example. Some of you may know this, but there is a very interesting case where Videocon had launched their fully automatic washing machines. This is about 10 years ago or even before that. So they launched their fully automatic washing machines and they wanted to completely phase off the semi-automatic machines. So they said, we will price these very competitively so that more and more people should switch to the fully automatic washing machines. Um, and they launched it. It was a hit product, the new fully automatic machines. But there were two states in India, Punjab and Haryana. They were not, uh, buying these new machines. They were still preferring to buy those semi-automatic old twin tub washing machines. So these guys became very curious. They sent out their market research firms. They checked out various towns and cities in Punjab and Haryana. And then they realized that, okay, what did they realize? What do you think it was? I think somebody has already given a hint in the chat. Okay, so because somebody's already given a hint in the chat, no, Usha, it was not power consumption. I mean, that's the same with everybody else in the country. Nothing specific or special about these two states. So I'll give you the answer now. Now, these two states are the highest milk producing states in the country. And the way people use these machines is primarily to churn milk to generate butter out of it. Okay, this was their primary use case for buying these machines, not to wash clothes. And even a small household in a village maybe has 2 or 4 cows, and you want to have a small dairy farming kind of an operation of your own. You churn milk, produce lassi and butter, and then you sell it out to your neighbors. Very small scale kind of a business you have. That was the primary use case. So this is amazing. um, it demonstrates that it's very critical for businesses to keep track of how their products are being used in the market. Only then can you produce better products. Only then can you win new customers. So if let's take the Whirlpool case, right? Next time if I go to buy a washing machine, it would be amazing if the salesperson can pull out my history and it will say, Ashish, we have seen that 80% of the times when you start your machine, you overload it. Your machine is rated for 6 kg of workload, but you always put 7 kg worth of load in it, and 80% of the times you're doing it. Then your machine stops and you have to pull the load out and then you restart the machine. This time, we strongly recommend that you buy an 8 kg workload washing machine. Right? That's one example. Similarly, geographically, you can highlight the features which are more popular for different regions, so on and so forth. Right? So, after sales service from consumer devices, very, very useful input, all enabled by IoT. This here is smart retail. Retail is also a very important sector. So this is Chai Point. You may have seen, especially if you're living in a big city, in tier one city, there are a lot of shops. Similarly, I mean, it's very similar to the cafe coffee day model. The chai stores, and Chai Point has a lot of chai dispensing machines. Okay, even in their stores, they have these same machines. Or if you are a business, you have a company, in your office campus, they may have deployed their machines, or in a big apartment complex, also they may have deployed their chai vending machines. Now, these are all connected to the internet. These are IoT devices. At any given point in time, they're keeping a close track of how much tea is being sold, what flavor of tea is being sold, is the device about to run out of sugar and milk powder and tea powder and all of that. So you don't miss out on any opportunity to refill your machine. Even before this machine runs out of its ingredients, Chai Point will send their person to make sure that it is refilled. And much more importantly, Chai Point has a very clear cut idea as to which areas in the city are consuming how much milk, what is the time frame within which people consume their tea. All of that is helpful for them to plan their supply chain, you know, in advance. Make sure that they are running a very efficient business. Very similar example here from Big Basket Instant. So many of you would have used Big Basket, right? Ordered groceries online from Big Basket. Now these guys have come up with these automatic refrigerators or vending machines. Now this refrigerator or vending machine is completely autonomous. There is no person which is manning this. You must have a BB Instant mobile phone app. You go to this refrigerator, scan using your phone's camera, and then you get connected to this machine. Then you choose what you want to buy. So I'll choose what I want to buy. Money will get automatically deducted from my wallet. This thing has interesting, very sensitive load sensors. So even if I pick off a 10 grams packet of small chocolate or something, it knows how many units I've picked up. Okay. So now here's the fun part. I have this in my apartment building, but my complex has more towers. The other towers also have these machines there. But when you walk across different buildings, you will find that the amount and the different categories of products that they stock in each one of these machines is not the same. It's very, very finely tuned based on the analytics that they get out of what is the kind of sales that every machine is generating. So if in my apartment complex it so happens there are a lot of kids, then this machine is going to most likely to be run out to run out of chocolates much more often, right? So they will stock more chocolates in the one which is in my building. Similarly, in other areas, maybe more namkeens or drinks and stuff like that, right? This is the most interesting part. So you can, in real time, almost figure out exactly what you should put on the rack so that it is sold instantaneously. Right? So retail business is benefiting from IoT a lot. Now I'm going to take an example of a very simple example of this ice cream parlor chain. This is IBACO ice creams. They have about 200 stores in India. Now, the cold storage industry, take ice creams for example, they suffer from heavy losses of inventory due to power outages. So in a country like ours, there are a lot of power outages. And when power goes off, if the store manager is not diligent enough to switch on the generator or maintain proper electrical infrastructure, the power goes off, refrigerator turns off, ice cream will melt, and it'll all be wasted. So they used to have 20 to 30% losses due to power outages. These guys got in touch with a Chennai-based startup called Nimble Wireless, and they installed these wireless temperature sensors in refrigerators. And these sensors would report live data to a simple server that these guys had set up. And they had set up a simple rules engine, no fancy electronics, no fancy analytics, simple rules engine. As soon as the temperature goes above 5 degrees Celsius, the system will generate a SMS to the store manager. Hey, look, probably there is something wrong. Please make sure the refrigerator is turned on. Let's say the store manager is a useless person. He doesn't do anything. The temperature further rises. It goes across 10 degrees Celsius. This time it will generate an SMS to his boss, which is the area supervisor. Let's say he is also a fool and absolutely doesn't take any action. Temperature goes up further, crosses 15 degrees Celsius. This time the system will generate an automated phone call to the CEO of the company. You know, hello, Mr. CEO, the store that you have on MG Road at Bangalore, there is power outage, ice creams are melting away. Please do something about it. Now, this simple set of rules and better alert system, coupled with more incentive for the humans, the human factor, the staff, the workforce of the organization to be more diligent, helped cut down the losses from 30% down to 5%. And within 4 months, they had saved enough money that they were able to compensate for the investment that they had made in setting the system up. And beyond that, all the extra ice cream that you now have contribute to a better top line, right? So isn't that interesting? Sahaj says, why doesn't it switch on generator and then it can do that, Sahaj. But the point is that even with just better simple reporting and alerts, they were able to bring down the wastages from 30% to 5%. Yes, the next step is to switch on the generator automatically, but even if you make the human more efficient, that solves the purpose. So the purpose of IoT is to save money and make sure that you're running a very efficient and a very tightly controlled business. Okay. This is a more complex example. This is about Rolls-Royce, that famous car manufacturer. They also manufacture uh, jet engines, jet aircraft engines, and they sell these jet aircraft engines to aircraft manufacturers. Companies like Boeing and Airbus and so on and so forth. So these jet engines are huge power plants. They have a lot of sensors built into them. They were measuring stuff like temperature, pressure, humidity in different chambers, fuel pressures, turbine speed, vibrations in turbines, tons of things. Thousands of sensors, a lot of data coming in from these jet engines. Now, all of this data they have started routing to their huge data center, and they can do a lot of interesting analytics on the data that they receive. So one direct application is predictive maintenance, like what we saw in the case of washing machine. The same thing applies here. You can do predictive maintenance even for a jet engine, but when you do it for a jet engine, you are actually saving lives potentially. So you can issue an alert to an airline that, look, Mr. Indigo, your aircraft which is flying from Delhi to Bangalore every day, it seems that you should replace certain part of your jet engine in the next 3 months. That's a very, very critical piece of information. I can plan my service schedules in a much more optimum way. The second thing that they can do is they can also keep track of fuel consumption. And they have also started giving suggestions on flight paths, optimum flight paths to save fuel. And if you reduce 1% usage of the fuel for an airline company, it translates into savings of 250,000 US dollars per plane per year for an airline company. That's how big this is. So Rolls-Royce with this is, coming out with these two interesting new services. Now, I have one question for you. So before Rolls-Royce started creating these reports, these analytics insights, who were their main customers? That's right. The aircraft companies, people like Boeing and Airbus and all of them. But who are their customers for this analytics report that they publish for better air routes? Yes, these are the airline companies. So companies like Boeing, companies like Air India, SpiceJet, stuff like that, right? So you see where I'm getting at? With the help of IoT and the data that they have been able to then analyze and generate insights, they have a completely new revenue stream. They have a new customer. And based on the product that they were selling, they are able to make more revenue, more profit purely by selling the insights that they're generating from the data acquired from their products, right? So this also is a very, very important aspect about IoT. It can help you gain newer revenue streams. So next, let's look at another simple example. Again, smart cities, I would call it, or smart transportation. These Yulu bikes, right? So chances are that if you are in especially if you're in Bangalore, you would have seen them. But many cities, these kind of things are coming in. So these are electric bikes, all possible purely with the help of IoT. So these bikes have inbuilt GPS trackers, and they have a GSM link using mobile networks. They are connected to Yulu servers. At any given point in time, they know exactly how much battery is remaining in these, so they can send their carts to charge these. You can also completely automatically, without any human intervention, manage the entire service aspect of your business. So your customer with a phone app unlocks this Yulu bike, all because everything is connected to the internet. Your phone app is connected to the internet, and the bike is connected to the internet. It's a perfect example of Internet of Things, and it keeps on tracking how far you have gone, and based on that, it will charge you, it will deduct money automatically from your wallet. And then when you park it back and you unlock and you lock it back, you are off the hook, and it will deduct the money and close that particular transaction. So purely implemented with the help of Internet of Things. You can't do that without IoT devices. Give you another example. This is Harley Davidson. So Harley Davidson used to take about 180 days, 3 months, to make a new bike, a new custom bike based on the request that has come in from a customer. So customers could give orders like, you want this kind of engine configuration, this kind of wheels, alloy wheel versus spoke versus how many treads meant for off-roading in city driving, blah blah blah. What kind of seats you want, what kind of color you want, what kind of handle configuration, lights, etc. A lot of things configurable, and it used to take them about 6 months to make a custom bike. Now the IT and the operations team of one of their factories in Ohio, they got together and they said, look, we have to cut down the time it takes for us to manufacture these bikes. Let's try to find out why so much delays happen. And they figured out that most of the times the delays happen because somebody on the shop floor is waiting for a particular part to arrive, and because there is unpredictability in the system as to what components will be ordered, because what configuration the customer will ask for, you don't have an efficient system. People are just waiting for the parts to be arrived in many situations. So they said, let's use some IoT sensors, let's do some better reporting of exact tracking, how many parts of a particular type do we actually have in our inventory. Look at the data of the orders which come in to us through the year, and then try to figure out how many components of a particular type we should keep in stock, and can we even predict in future what kind of product parts will we need, so that we can reduce the time it takes for us to manufacture a bike. They were able to bring down, after implementing similar techniques, they did more than this. I'm just oversimplifying. They did more than this, and they were able to bring down the time it used to take them from 180 days down to 2 weeks, and their operating cost dropped by $200 million. This is amazing. And of course, a lot of downtime was saved. Customers are happy, all with the help of all this better tracking done with the help of IoT sensors. So Parimal says even Royal Enfield is starting doing that. Absolutely right. Royal Enfield also started some customization options. Now I'm going towards the end of all these examples. Almost done with various examples. Now this here is a very interesting example of a microscope, which this company called Sigtuple, very interesting startup. So these guys mounted a camera on top of a standard microscope. So a typical microscope, the way you use it is that, let's say you want to go for a blood test or you want to check for particular infection. Somebody will prick your finger, take blood, create blood slide. Blood slide is kept under the microscope. Then a person, a pathologist, a trained person, a pathologist will look at this blood slide under the microscope lens, and essentially he's doing a visual inspection. So he's looking at what kind of different shapes and sizes of different blood cells exist, what is the count of typical types of blood cells, so on, so forth, colorations. So he's purely doing visual inspection, and his knowledge, he's banking on his knowledge of pathology that he applies here. So these guys said this process can be automated. So they mounted an iPhone, you take high resolution pictures, using this, you ship it to the cloud. In cloud, you do computer vision and image processing and a lot of machine learning algorithms to do pattern recognition. And once you do pattern recognition, you can automate a lot of these blood tests. And the most interesting thing about machine learning algorithms is that the more data you feed, the more accurate they become. Now, these guys have been able to automate about 60 to 70 tests. And this is a big boon for people who are not living in city centers. So imagine you are 150, 200 kilometers out of Bangalore, maybe a small village, 1,000 people. You don't have a pathology lab or a blood testing service available nearby. If you have to test all the 1,000 people, let's say for a disease, God forbid something like COVID again comes in, and you need to collect blood samples, imagine the work. 1,000 blood samples have to be taken, kept in test tubes, in an ambulance or something, over road, have to be transported to a city. In the city, then people will manually look under it. But if you have this device, you send one nurse to the village in 2 days. That single nurse can process the entire village, and blood test reports can be generated all online, right? Parimal says lots of cancer detection. Absolutely right. Lots of cancer detection is being done with the help of machine learning algorithms, purely by image analysis, right? Sandeep says there's a company called Tricog, which has an ECG solution which is based on IoT. Absolutely right, Sandeep. Tricog is an interesting example, right? So healthcare has a lot. Now let's look at COVID. So this company Kinsa, they used to make digital thermometers, and what they did is when COVID hit, they started having a cloud service, and these digital thermometers. There was one model which had Wi-Fi built into it, so it could report this reading directly to the cloud service, and the other model, the handheld one, you could connect to an iPhone or a phone through your audio port, and via that link, it can send it to the cloud. The phone app can send this temperature reading to the cloud. Now, this is amazing because if, let's say, the entire healthcare workforce of the country can be equipped with these devices and a national portal can be set up, you can figure out COVID hotspots in real time, right? So you can map the patients with high temperature in specific conditions, all geographically done. And then you can use analytics running on top of this to trigger hotspots. This is a very, very useful way to contain pandemics. So this brings me to the end of my segment on all these different examples and use cases of IoT. And that's what basically we set out to do, right? I said that it's very important for us to identify the killer applications of IoT even before we start talking about sensors and devices and gateways and networking protocols and cloud and analytics, because those are all technology pieces. But before we go there, we should have a very good idea as to what is the IoT application, what is the killer application of IoT which is useful for me in my specific use case that I'm using it for. And if you compare all these examples that we saw, um, you can bucket them into these 5 categories. Remote connected operations, meaning if I'm a business, I'm able to remotely monitor and control what's happening in the field and run a very efficient operations. This is called remote connected operations. Production optimization, if I have a factory, I should be able to optimize all the activities of my factory so that I can cut down the time it takes me to produce my products. Asset tracking and management, if I have a fleet of assets that I want to track, and I want to manage different assets, high value assets that I have, that's the third important killer application. Then predictive maintenance, we spoke about that, saw a few examples, is very, very, very critical killer application of IoT. And then finally, we also have some new products, or rather, I should say, product enabled services, which we didn't have earlier, which we have to thank to this IoT technologies coming into picture, right? So now, I want you to categorize these all the examples that we saw in these 5 buckets, right? And this is also the point where we'll take a very quick break. So it is 6:16 by my clock, and let's take a 10-minute break at this point. We'll come back exactly at 6:26. Okay, we'll make it round. So let's come back at 6:25, where we will resume on this topic. By that time, think about all the different examples we discussed and try to categorize them into 5 buckets. And when I come back, we will discuss these categories. Yeah. So 10 minutes break. See you around. All right. Welcome back after the break. Just want to check whether you can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Just say yes in the chat window. All right, good. Great. So I see a lot of traffic on the chat about where can I learn IoT, etc. So right after this slide, before moving on further, I'll actually show that. But let's continue with this thread, right? I saw a lot of responses from the chat where you mentioned a lot of you have already categorized into different things. So let's talk about your remote connected operations, right? What's the best example of remote connected operations? Simple and the best example. Smart tractor, remote connected. So Chai Point is definitely remote connected operations. You're able to figure out what's happening as part of your operations. The big basket instant, that's a very good example of remote connected operations. And the IBACO ice cream. Thank you, Siddharth. So IBACO ice cream is definitely one of the simplest examples of IoT. I really like that example because uh, it is so simple that any one of you can implement. Just two of you pair up together using minimal hardware, almost free software, virtually no cost on cloud. You can set it up together, and you can implement that solution. So remote connected operations, all these good examples: the Ibaco ice cream, the BB instant, the coffee, the tea, chai point example, vending machines at airports. What about production optimization? Harley Davidson, absolutely right? Production optimization. And if you look at the predictability of how much milk that cow will produce, to some extent, that also. But it's mostly that Harley Davidson is a very good example of that. Asset tracking and management. Big baskets, asset in the sense if you're tracking your refrigerator, yes, but Yulu bikes, very, very good example of asset tracking and management. They have a fleet of bikes, and you are basically keeping a track of where which one is, and you're monetizing it, your asset essentially in the field. Bus and truck fleet operators, all of that. Yeah. Predictive maintenance, Rolls Royce and the jet engines, yeah, and the washing machines, absolutely right. So the washing machine and the Rolls Royce jet engines, these are very good examples of predictive maintenance. And then new products and services. This is basically what I would say an automated service being enabled with the help of IoT. So SIGTuple example is I would say a new way of doing this service of blood pressure monitoring. Sorry, blood test done with the help of an automated system, right? So this concludes my discussion on all the different applications of IoT. Now I'll get into a very simple view of IoT architecture. Then we look at what are the things that we need to learn in order to become, an IoT professional or an IoT expert. So if you look at all the different examples that we saw, okay, before I get into the IoT architecture, so do you think IoT is new? Is IoT new? Lavanya says no. Rick Biswas says yes. Right? So, see, what is IoT at the end of the day? You have deployed some sensors in the field. You are capturing data from the sensors via a communication network. That data is coming to a centralized computing system where you're doing some analysis and decision making. And then you're sending this decision back to the field. So this entire flow is not new at all. This is the mainstay of IoT, and it's not new. Industrial automation is a very vast field, and big plants like Tata Steel plants, you have car manufacturing units, chemical processing industry. These guys have been using industrial automation for decades now, right? So in that sense, the pure concept of IoT is not new as such. But the biggest rise in the IoT now is because of its low cost appeal for bringing simple solutions to simpler problems, not just for capital intensive problems, which can only be solved in these giant plants and big machinery setups. So we have to thank the hardware revolution, because the hardware is really low cost these days. It's very easy, not at all very expensive these days to implement these kind of asset tracking and management use cases. For example, in Yulu bikes, or if you have a fleet of taxis, right? You don't have to invest too much money. 2-3,000 rupee hardware is enough. Next is connectivity. We spoke about the mobile phone revolution, which gave us widespread connectivity, right? So hence, connectivity is something which is the second very important piece, which is accelerating the growth of IoT. Swandeep is right. We did not notice IoT in such a broad way earlier. It was limited to capex intensive applications like machinery and plant control and industrial automation. And the third is cloud, guys. So when there was no cloud, you had to set up your own hardware for collecting data, storing it. You have to hire people to manage the hardware. You have to invest in money for the physical infrastructure. You have to make sure that there is enough of electricity available, high bandwidth internet connection available. You have to spend a lot of money to set up your own data center. But now, any one of us can very simply instantiate an AWS account and implement an application, right? So cloud computing, which is a relatively a very recent phenomenon, maybe just a decade old, has really accelerated the growth of IoT. Right? So if you look at all the examples we discussed, this is a very, very simple, I would say, 4-layer architecture of IoT. There are more things to it. I have simplified it for a wider understanding. But if you look at it, any of the applications that we discussed today, they can be put together and explained with the help of this underlying architecture. So ultimately, there are 4 pieces to IoT, right? So Dikshit is asking what's the difference between IoT, data analytics, etc. So this will make it clear, So you have layer 1 of IoT, which is your devices, things. We spoke about so many different devices. The digital thermometer is a layer 1 IoT device. Your washing machine is a layer 1 IoT device. Your car, if it has a tracker, layer 1 IoT device. This is layer 1 of IoT. Layer 2 of IoT is the gateway, right? So imagine your home network where you have this washing machine connected to the internet. How is the washing machine connected to the internet? It most likely will have a Wi-Fi chip built into it, and then it will talk to your home Wi-Fi router. Now let's think about the home Wi-Fi router. It is a network device which is aggregating data coming in from so many different layer 1 devices. So you have data coming from my phone, my laptop, which I'm using right now to talk to you, data coming in from my television, my washing machine, my refrigerator. Hence, this layer 2 is the networking layer, just like your home Wi-Fi router. It communicates data aggregated from all the sensors and devices to the cloud. Sometimes layer 1 devices are also called southbound devices. Many times the communication that happens from the gateway to the layer 1 devices is called southbound communication. And the communication that happens between the gateway and the cloud is called northbound communication. So northbound and southbound, very commonly used terminologies. Third layer is the cloud layer. This is where all your data comes to reside. After collecting all of this data, it has to be stored, it has to be made available for analysis and decision making. All of that has to happen in cloud. And then finally, the fourth layer is the analytics, the machine learning stuff which happens in the cloud. Okay. Now, I know that the fourth layer is not a physical layer, meaning it's mostly a soft layer. It runs inside the cloud layer, but it is important enough. And you've seen so many examples today where those examples could not be possible without the fourth layer, which is analytics. Hence, I have captured it separately over here. So what do you need to learn if you want to become an IoT expert? Right? These are the 4 layers of IoT. Hence, you need, plus you need systems thinking, right? This is a soft skill that you must have. All the technology skills are related to the different layers of IoT, but you also need to have the capability to be able to put these systems together. That's a very important skill to have if you want to become an expert in IoT. So these are the 4 different areas in which you need to learn different new concepts. So you should have knowledge of small hardware devices, sensors, actuators. You should have knowledge of gateway device platforms, basically networking systems, operating systems also, because these gateway devices often run Linux kind of operating systems, modified versions of Linux, and they deploy a lot of different types of networking protocols and network connectivity options. So you should have knowledge of both of those. You should have familiarity with building cloud-based applications, and you should have familiarity of analytics and machine learning as applied to IoT data. These are the four areas that you should know to become an IoT expert. Can one person master all the four areas? What do you think? Yes, no, maybe. Man says no. Manmeet says yes. Sandeep says yes. Karthik says yes. Okay, Siddharth says yes. One person said maybe also. Okay, so guys, in my opinion, it's not possible for a single person to become a deep down expert in all these four areas. You basically end up spending decades of rich work experience in each one of these areas to become a downright expert, right? But how should you then proceed? So you should gain expertise in any one or maximum two of these areas. If you're coming in from electronic side, you should have expertise, let's say, in IoT devices or networking protocols and gateways. If you're coming in from software side, you probably should have expertise in cloud, and you should have some idea about analytics and data sciences. But you should have exposure to all the four areas. So expertise in one or two of them, but exposure to all four of them. That's the way to become an IoT expert. Sandeep says, what if a person is coming from electricals? You can start with instrumentation, Sandeep. Instrumentation, basically connecting all these sensors to various devices. That's what basically it's all about. Kamraj says, what's the difference between AI, ML, and IoT? I think it should be pretty clear. When we say we have an IoT use case, it involves these four layers. And AI, ML is just one part of these four layers. But the entire use case put together is what IoT stands for, right? So how should you get started on your learning journey? So I think in the chat from FutureSkills also people were talking about this course that we have launched. This is a free course that is something that can get you started immediately on your learning path on your IoT journey. So I want to show you a quick glimpse of this course, and then we'll get on to complete our conversation and then get on to the demo. Okay. So if you go to the FutureSkills website, this is the landing page of the FutureSkills website. And if you see here on the top banner itself, at least right now, you will see start with Internet of Things. So either you can click here to go to the landing page of all the different courses and resources that are available for you right now. And or the other way to go about it is in the search bar itself, you can just hit IoT and you can see what all type of things that you're interested in actually discovering. So please go through this website, you can search for all articles, you can search for blogs, you can search for open available videos, you can search for quizzes, etc., live events. So right now I'm interested in checking out various courses in IoT. So the first course in IoT, this the one from Jigsaw Academy, the foundation course in IoT. This course is free for some time till 4th June, is mapped to the IoT foundation standards which have been set up by NASCOM, and is made available to you through FutureSkills initiative. It's very easy to enroll for this course. If you click on it, it'll basically throw open this window. You just click on this enroll button and then you'll be taken through a series of steps. And then you'll finally end up on the course dashboard, right? So this is what the course looks like. Now, on this course, the main thing that I wanted to highlight was that you will find that there are topics. Yes, this is a certified course. So you will find topics which are related to all the four categories of all the four layers of IoT. So that is very critical for us to gain practical knowledge in the field of IoT, right? You have to have all the four layers covered. So it starts with IoT architecture, different types of applications of IoT, retail and industrial IoT reference architecture covered to give you some starting point and an overall view of this. But then it quickly gets into layer one aspects of IoT, sensors and signals and microcontroller concepts. You can study this topic to use a very versatile small device called Node MCU. It's easily available either online or at your local electrical shop. And it has Wi-Fi built in. You will get to connect sensors to this. Then you have layer one. After layer one, you have layer two devices, right? So layer two devices are all Raspberry Pi based, which you can use to act as a gateway. So in this topic for topic 14, you have machine to machine communication. It's all done with the help of Raspberry Pi. Then comes cloud. So there are a lot of topics around cloud. How do you deploy your application on cloud? How do you use cloud as infrastructure as a service? How do you deploy microservices on cloud? Stuff like that. And then finally, we also have included introductory topics around data science for IoT, data science topics. So what are the different KPIs that you should measure in analytics for IoT? How do you do data acquisition for IoT? How do you do data cleaning? So on and so forth, right? So this in a sense, is very, very um, uh, comprehensive foundation course for IoT. It's still foundation. It will not make you an expert in IoT. Definitely it will not make you an expert in any of these areas, but it'll give you a very good introductory experience of what exactly IoT is. What all different types of layers in an IoT I basically can do. Somebody's asking, will there be any certification exam? So yes, so I think through FutureSkills itself, for all the foundation courses which are mapped to the foundation curriculum, you will be able to go to their website and take up an exam which is outside this course. The course itself does not have the exam. Exam you can take separately. I'm sure more details can be shared with you through FutureSkills. So, so I want to get back to now my topic. Arpan Malik says, next step after the course, next step after the course, take up a bigger course in Internet of Things. So we have from Jigsaw Academy also two much more detailed programs, IoT professional certification and also IoT analyst certification. You can go for those. And you can also think about which area you want to specialize in, right? I said there are 4 layers of IoT. So you should choose which area you want to become an expert, because as I said, you want exposure for all the different areas, but you must have expertise in one of them. So maybe choose cloud if you're from software background. Take up a cloud expertise certification from somewhere, or cloud course. Start practicing, build prototypes, build projects, contribute to open source. All these things can be done after taking up a course. Vishnu says how web application development is related to IoT. So Vishnu, all of this data is ultimately going back to the web, or let's say the cloud server only, right? So the web application part is all the visualization part of all this data, and also analysis, visualization of the analysis of the data that has been received from IoT devices. So take for example Google Maps, right? Now, Google Maps is a web application, but it can also show you where the fleet of cars that you own are at a given point in time, right? So you need the web application infrastructure to consume the insights being generated once data has been collected and analyzed and all of that. And web application is the way to do that. Okay. So I am not deviating from now. Somebody started talking about cybersec. This is about cloud. Sorry, this is about IoT and all the different layers of IoT. I want to go back to my topic, and we have some very interesting things that we were discussing on IoT. So I'm going to resume there. So it's 6:45. We will finish my slide deck in 15 minutes. We'll discuss some more interesting considerations of IoT. And then from 7 to 7:30, half an hour, we will have the demo of an IoT live application. Yeah. Okay. So we covered the different areas of knowledge that you need to acquire. Who are the different companies? What kind of companies are working in this domain? So you have the technology companies, both hardware and software. They're all working in the IoT domain to create devices, create software platforms, to set up cloud services for IoT. You can see the names of all popular companies. Check out online, go to their websites, figure out what they're doing in IoT. Next is IT companies, your standard software services firms. So if a big business wants to implement an IoT solution, they will take the help of IT companies to come up with the complete solution, using the technology blocks provided by technology companies. And hence, all the commonly popular IoT companies are also commonly popular IT companies are looking at IoT in a big way, because they are going to get into turnkey solutions for IoT problems. Someone is saying Wipro logo is here. Yes, Ravi, thanks for pointing it out. I'll update it. It's an older logo. So telecom service providers is another very, very important area for IoT, because all of this data ultimately has to be relayed from devices to the cloud via somebody's network. And many new interesting IoT related networking communication protocols are coming in, and all your standard typical service providers are investing in it. Tata Communications is the country's first company which has invested in a pure IoT network based on LoRaWAN technology. So they cover 40 cities right now. Reliance Jio is doing trials of something known as NB-IoT, narrowband IoT. Vodafone and Airtel are betting big on 5G, so on and so forth. So network providers and telecom service providers is a very important area again. People who are working in the IoT domain. Then you have big businesses and startups, right? So startups definitely um, are using IoT from day one. Companies like Yulu, Big Basket Instant, they're leveraging the power of IoT. And obviously big businesses, we saw many examples of big businesses. Right? So before we end the talk and get into the demo, I want to finally talk about a couple of challenges also in IoT. IoT is not all great news and everything hunky-dory. There are two key challenges in IoT. So the first one is cybersecurity and security threats. So the problem with IoT is a lot of these devices, when they were designed and created, they were not created envisaging that these could also be hacked. And take, for example, your refrigerator. When people designed the firmware for the refrigerator, they did not predict or assume that people will be able to hack into them. But as you add connectivity, especially wireless connectivity to existing devices, they become vulnerable to attacks. Hence, that is leading to a lot of security concerns. The other issue is, how about data privacy? Am I buying a device which, without my knowledge or consent, recording a lot of data about me and sending it with someone whom I don't want it to be shared with? So these are some concerns around security which need special attention. There's a lot of activity around security now. There is a lot of awareness also which is coming in. Hardware manufacturers have come together to build in features into devices which can help software guys to implement secure applications. They're coming up with features like secure memory areas where you can store cryptographic keys. They're coming up with solutions like secure boot, so that malicious software or unauthenticated operating system will not boot. If somebody even tampers with your system and, let's say, installs a malicious piece of software, the system will not boot, so on and so forth. So security is one. The second one is lack of a clear business case. So the problem with IoT is, many of us, we just start with our IoT proof of concept or projects without thinking about how it will benefit the business. And then we end up collecting a lot of data, and then we don't know what to do with that data, and then finally that project fails. So this is something that we need to watch out for. And the solution to this is very simple. Before starting with any IoT application idea, any IoT project idea, think about the business use case. What is it that you are trying to achieve? And I already gave you the 5 killer applications of IoT. So your idea has to fit in one of those categories. And if you are able to come up with a business case that, okay, after implementing this solution, this company should be able to save so much money by way of making their operations more efficient, then that's a very good start for your IoT project. Yeah. So there are a lot of jobs also coming into IoT. According to some predictions, about 50,000 jobs in the next 4 years, even more in India, and 76% higher salaries is what you can get if you are an IoT expert or an IoT engineer, is what has been predicted. And that's because it's systems, right? So it's something which requires you to have knowledge in many areas, and it's very rare skill to have right now, and that's the reason why you get higher salaries. Scope of cybersecurity, Kuchi, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of cybersec attacks just now before I cover the job roles. So, um, NASCOM had an initiative wherein they created national occupation standards. They also created, after discussing with a lot of industry experts, uh, which were part of the NASCOM's IoT working group, they came up with these different job families which are expected to come up in the near future. So you will have IoT jobs in sort of the strategic part of the company, your CTOs, product managers, so job families there. Then definitely the architects, technical architects, you will have solution architects for IoT, integration architects, DevOps architects. You have jobs around business intelligence and analysis of IoT data, essentially data scientist role, but more specifically tied for IoT related data. In engineering domain, obviously you already have a lot of jobs which are linked with this directly or indirectly. Right? You have embedded software design, embedded hardware design, testing, all those jobs are there. Communications, there are a lot of jobs going to come in communications for IoT networking engineer and similarly other ones. Then you have IoT security analyst. This also is going to become a specialized field. So cybersecurity professional is still very generic, but we will need people who are specializing in IoT security. You also need IoT field application engineers. This is more lower level jobs. People will be needed to deploy devices in the field, configure them, debug them, so on and so forth. You will also need people who are domain experts, and then they will be consultants to IoT. Now, what does this mean? Let's say there is a doctor, he's a healthcare expert, right? That person will be a domain expert. He will have to work with the team which is creating an IoT enabled healthcare product, like for example. So we will need a lot of domain experts also in IoT. All right. In the next 6-7 minutes, I'm going to cover 2-3 IoT security failure cases just to give you a taste of how security is a big concern in the field of IoT. So this one is about a very popular or infamous a virus called Mirai. So Mirai botnet attack became very, very infamous. It infected a lot of different IoT devices and brought down networks. So essentially, Mirai is a piece of malware that infects IoT devices. So it will try to, it will run on some hardware and it will try to scan for other devices on the same network and it will try to just copy itself onto those devices. And then it goes into a dormant mode. So it starts with locating and compromising IoT devices. Then it'll just stay there waiting for commands from the hacker. So then what happens is, let's say this thing is just copying itself into more and more IoT devices, and it keeps on listening from any commands coming from the hacker. And when the hacker gives the command, all these devices will launch what is known as the DDoS attack. DDoS is a special category of cybersecurity hack. It stands for distributed denial of service. And I'll explain to you in a very simple language. If so, any website, let's say Flipkart website, uh, when people create websites, you do load modeling. They say that, okay, we have set up enough infrastructure, we've deployed enough servers at the backend that my Flipkart website can be opened by 500 million users at any given point in time. Let's say, for example. But what if more than 5 million people, let's say 10 million people immediately come onto the Flipkart's website? The servers will not be able to handle the load and the servers will crash. Many times this has happened, in the past when Big Billion Sale was announced. A lot of people immediately got onto the Flipkart website and the servers crashed. So if you want to bring down a particular website, one very simple way is to just generate a lot of data which simultaneously comes to access that website. So this is what denial of service does. So they spread across different IoT devices, and when the hacker gives the command remotely, because this malicious software is listening to commands coming in from the hacker, they will just start loading a particular website immediately, and then they will overload that particular website and bring it down. This is how basically this denial of service attack works, DDoS attack works. How was this malware able to get itself installed in so many IoT devices? Because, okay, let me ask you a question. Take a pause here. What is your home Wi-Fi router's password, username and password? I'm not talking about the Wi-Fi SSID and password. So your home Wi-Fi router, has its own IP address and password. So, absolutely right. So Ravi says he says admin and password, and I have to admit myself, mine is admin. Okay, so somebody is giving in mobile numbers. This is very easy to hack, guys, and this is the exact vulnerability that somebody says admin and test. Absolutely right. So this is the vulnerability which hackers exploited in this particular case. So in this brute force kind of a method, it has a dictionary of most commonly used usernames and passwords. These are most common usernames and passwords for your home Wi-Fi router. Root, user root, root pass, admin none, blah blah blah. Right? And the software would do a very simple thing. It will identify the IP address of the router, very easy to do, and then it will just try to start logging into the router by just trying a combination of all of these usernames and passwords. Right? Very easy. So this is how Mirai botnet spread. Attacker would gain control of all these devices, and then it would give a notification, give a command. All these compromised devices would start attacking a particular website, and then they were able to bring down many websites. Which all websites? They were able to bring down websites of Netflix in certain areas, Twitter, Reddit, CNN, The Guardian, all of them. This was launched in 2016. And what were the devices which are compromised? Security cameras, your digital video recorders, these recorders which sit behind the security cameras, Wi-Fi routers, all of these kind of devices were hacked. And how many devices were hacked? About 50,000 devices were hacked. Not just CCTV cameras, but all these other kind of devices. And this was the scope of the attack. You had devices pinging in even from Montenegro, Tajikistan, and Somalia, which were compromised in trying to hack into, trying to bring down websites using DDoS attacks. So very, very popular use case. Now we have very simple lessons from this. Number one, make sure that you have a very secure username and password. Admin and root admin is just a big no-no. Second, any IoT device that is implemented, it should be able to update its firmware remotely, because as and when you get more and more security attacks, you improve your software and you should be able to release software updates. Hence, you should never implement an IoT devices if they cannot in their software be able to update its own software. Very important, because you will figure out new hacks, you will be able to update, and then you would want to issue a security update, security patch, and if your device cannot do that, it's a big no. Changing your default username and password. Never just use whatever factory default username and password your device came with. Passwords for IoT devices should be unique. If you have 3 home Wi-Fi routers, you cannot have same usernames and passwords for all those. And always keep your devices up to date with the latest security patches. Right. Another very quick use case, I'll not spend too much of time. These two guys, Charlie Miller and Chris Walasek, these guys in 2015 were able to hack into the Jeep Cherokee car, wirelessly, and then they were able to control the speed of the car. You could even control the steering. You were able to apply brakes. It's scary. So, but these guys, good guys, ethical hackers. So they reported this to Chrysler, and then Chrysler said, we have fixed everything. In 2016, these guys came back, tested that car again, and it still had some vulnerabilities, although reduced vulnerabilities, but still had vulnerabilities. And then this here is an example from Finland where some malicious hackers broke into the thermostat systems of a building. In Finland is a very, very cold country. They broke into the thermostat of this building using a DDoS attack. And then the entire environmental system had to be rebooted, and people were sitting in the code for a few days because of this hack. So security being a big concern, need to be very careful about it. All right, great. So uh, now we get into the interesting part where we will actually look at a interesting IoT use case and interesting IoT application live. Okay, so before I get into this IoT application, I have to explain a little bit about the cloud. Yeah, so the cloud. What is cloud? Can someone tell me what exactly cloud is? I'll take 5 minutes to explain what exactly cloud is. Sarfaraz says it's a server. Absolutely right. Ultimately, it's a server. Garima says it's a database. Yes, clouds have database. Virtualized servers, mass data storage, virtual servers, use server. Absolutely right. All of you are right. But ultimately, very good example, explanation. Ayush says someone else's computer that you can access remotely. Ayush, I cannot put this simpler than that, and I think I'm going to note it down. I'm going to use it in my other session. So cloud is nothing but someone else's computer that you can access remotely. Okay. Take a look at this leftmost column. It says traditional on premises, meaning if I am setting an IoT application and my entire application is running on my computer. Okay. So I have an IoT device, let's say my washing machine, and my washing machine is dumping data to my computer sitting in home. This is the closest approximation to on premises, which means if the data is coming to my server, the hardware of that server is owned by me. I have installed operating system in it. I have installed middleware. I am running runtime, the application, everything I am doing myself. It is on my computer. Next up is, let's say Google comes and says, Ashish, why do you want to maintain a separate hardware? You will have to obviously make sure that it is continuously up and running. We have a hardware, it is sitting in the US. We have built a safe data center. We will give you on rent. You should be able to remotely access my hardware, but we will only give you hardware. You install your own OS, you control everything that you want to do on it. It's all yours. This is called infrastructure as a service. So only hardware being rented by somebody else. The entire software stack I will do myself. This is called IaaS. I will come to platform as a service in a little while. Let's talk about software as a service, which is the last extreme. Last extreme says the hardware, software, web application, everything is maintained by somebody else. I am not maintaining any single piece of it. My users come to the website, which is created by the software as a service guys, and my users directly start using their web service. Give me examples of software as a service. Netflix is a software as a service. Gmail is a very good software as a service. Office 365, very good. Google Sheets, all of these are very good examples of Google Drive for storage, managed storage, G Suite. These are all software as services, So then what is platform as a service? Platform as a service is something which is in between infrastructure as a service and software as a service. What it means is that it is not a black box kind of a software application like Gmail where I can't control anything. I still can control a lot of things, but I cannot control what OS is running on the other side. I will give you a platform wherein you can do building blocks. You can do assembly of building blocks to put together an IoT application. You will be able to write some piece of code of your own also. You may be able to use some managed service that I'm providing ready-made. And by putting together all these things, you can implement your complete end-to-end IoT application. This is called platform as a service. A lot of good examples you guys have given me. For example, CRM, Salesforce, etc. are all good examples of platform as a service, right? And by the way, guys, I see a lot of some confusing points over here. So whether it's AWS or Azure, they both give you options for IaaS versus platform as a service. Either you can purely rent their hardware, which comes with just OS installed, That too, you choose which one to install. Or you can use their built-in services like the data analytics service, the IoT service, so on and so forth. So you get a choice there, right? And then you have software as a service, wherein there are companies like ThinkWorks. They give you the complete implementation. All right. So this is the IBM Cloud. So I'm going to use an IBM Cloud, and what I will do is in this demo, I am going to expose the different sensors which are present in my phone, and I'm going to ship that data IBM Cloud, where I've set up a simple service using their building blocks, and I'm going to play with that data, analyze it, and I've built a very small app which will do some alerts and triggers. Okay, this is what I've done for you for this one. Now, I will show you this running today. And after that, typically people get very excited and they want to implement it themselves. So I will give you the link where you can try this, set this on your own, also on your own time. So this basically comes with an assignment, if you will. So if you enjoy, or if you're interested in what you see right now, you can set it up on your own also. I've collected all the material that you will need to set this up, and I've uploaded into this link that I'm maintaining. So I've just given you that, and you can access it. Okay. So, so I'm going to expose the sensors of my phone, and then I'm going to push it to the cloud, and I'm going to analyze it. I'm going to set some rules engine. I'm going to do some triggers and alerts also. So what are the sensors in my phone? It has many sensors, but the one that I'm really interested in is the accelerometer. This sensor can basically measure acceleration in the 3-axis, X, Y, and Z. So if I move my phone around, it can give me at what rate I've been moving my phone around, meters per second square. That's the sensor that I'm going to use. It also has a gyroscope, the phone. So roll, pitch, and yaw is also something it will report, although I'm not using it in my app. Okay. So this is the entire setup for my demo application today. Sai Smita says, will it work on iOS? There is an iOS version of this demo, but I have not tried it myself. Okay, so probably you can search for the iOS version. You have to do some additional steps in order to install that application, the iOS version of that application. It's there on the IBM's website, so you can check it out from there. The Android guys, you have a ready-made APK, which you can just download and play with it. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. I have my phone. I will install a simple mobile app. It is a test mobile app. It is not a published mobile app. You will not be able to find it on App Store. It is there as a download from the web link that I have given to you right now. This mobile app does a very simple thing. It will initiate a connection with the IBM Watson IoT platform. This is the name for the platform as a service offering which IBM has created for IoT applications on their IBM cloud. The protocol that the phone application uses to connect with the IBM Watson IoT cloud is called MQTT. We don't have the scope or the time to get into how MQTT works, but for those of you who don't know about it, just like you use HTTP protocol to access internet to open up different websites, MQTT is a very, very popular machine-to-machine communication protocol, right? So it'll use MQTT to set up communication link with the IBM Watson cloud. This guy, the application on the phone, will start shipping accelerometer readings to the cloud. Okay, this is what it does. And on the cloud, I have set up some interesting things. So when the data comes into the IBM Watson IoT platform, I will ship it to an application development environment. Okay. As I said, platform as a service also provides me option to write my own software, build my own application. So I will use a graphical user interface, something which is very easy to use and very popular for playing with IoT stuff. Node-RED. Node-RED is a GUI-based programming environment. Just like you use Eclipse IDE for building Java applications and C applications, Node-RED can be used to build JavaScript-based applications, but without having to write a single piece of code. It has drag and drop boxes which you can put together to mash up an application. Yeah, and then we will implement some interesting logic in that application, and I will trigger some emails based on certain conditions, listening into the data coming in from the phone. Yeah. The other thing that I have not shown in this picture is The IBM Watson IoT platform also allows me to draw live charts and graphs to show me the behavior of the data real time. I will also give you a glimpse of it. Okay. Now, one thing that you guys can do along with me, just to have fun and play with me, I have set up my cloud, but we can also do something where you can right now during this session live ship your phone's data to my cloud account, and we can see it live here and we can show it to everybody. So for that, what we'll do is the link that I've given you, go there, open that link on your phone browser in the Chrome browser of your phone. And there you will find one file, which is the APK file. Okay. So I'll just show you this. So this, when you click on that, let's say you type that link in your Chrome browser, you will be shown this list. You will have one APK file. It's called IoT Starter v2.2.0.apk. Okay, I'm sending the link again. Yeah. So from this link, you can download IoT Starter v2.2.2.0.apk. This is the application you download from the link I gave you in your phone. Then you install this APK on your phone. Now, depending upon which Android version you are using, it may ask you for a security acceptance. It may say, are you sure this application is from an untrusted source? Please, give permissions to install it or whatever. So guys, I am not getting into the details of this. I don't have the scope and the time for you to teach you that, but it will not open directly, guys. You have to do some settings in Android to enable for it to allow it to be installed directly from the APK. It will not open, but you will have to install it. So I've just put out this link. If any one of you can just in parallel try to get it to run, just let me know, ping in the chat. I will give you the coordinates to push data from there to my cloud account. Okay. And for those of you who are saying not possible to install, there are many tutorials out there how to install APK files on Android. Okay, so in most modern, the latest OS versions, if you just open from your browser, find the APK you want to download. Once it's downloaded, go to the download tab, open downloads, tap on APK file. Then it may ask you, are you sure you want to install this on your phone? It's coming from some untrusted source, Okay, so Rick Biswas has gotten it up and running. Okay, so I have at least one person, Rick, and I have Hariharan. Two guys have installed it and they have it up and running. Great, awesome. Okay, so let me just note down your names because I can't receive data from all of you guys, but the guys who got it done the first, we will look at your data. Oh, a lot of you have done it. Okay, now let me show you the IBM cloud. Let me show you how it looks like. Let me show you how you can instantiate various services, and it's a fun tool. I really like all these cloud applications. A lot of fun things you can do as a hobby with the help of various services which they come built in with. So this is what IBM Cloud is, cloud.ibm.com, and you can create an account. It's a free account. You do not have to pay money or add your credit card to just at least create the account and do some simple stuff. But as and when you start building serious applications, you have to pay them per different service that you use. Okay, so this is what the cloud catalog looks like. So before I show you what all I have, if you see on the top, there is a button called catalog, and this here will give you the list of all the different services that IBM Cloud gives you. Okay, So take for example, so I can also search the catalog for different categories. So let me say AI, for example, right? Or let me call, okay, I'll just say Watson. Watson is the name of most of their AI based services. So see what kind of services it can do. It can do personality insights, so it basically can monitor social media stuff, and it can basically do monitoring of social media tweets and give you personality insights based on some machine learning models that it has. Similarly, it can do language translations. It can do tone analysis. Here is one service called tone analysis, right? So it gives analysis of the conversation as to whether a person emotionally, how was it, upbeat, chirpy, sad, happy. So it can do tone analysis. It can do text to speech. So if you feed text into this service, it can give out audio, and if you feed audio into the speech to text version of this, it can give you text. So there's a lot of different services. I'm just giving you few flavors over here. There is let's look at IoT. So for IoT, they have something known as Internet of Things platform. See here, IoT platform. I am going to click on this IoT service. So you see what this service does. This service is the hub for IBM Watson IoT. It lets you communicate and consume data from connected devices and gateways, and use the built-in web console dashboards to monitor your data and analyze it in real time, right? So it does all of those interesting things. It can help you capture data from the different devices in the field, and it can then allow me to store this data in some sort of a database, and then from there I can do whatever analysis that I want. Okay, so I'm not doing a demo of exactly how to do this. That's definitely not something that I have time for. I need a 4-hour class outside of this to actually show you how to use this. I'm just giving you a flavor. I just wanted to expose you. If you want to do it on your own time, I have given you the the link that I gave you, that has 2 PDF files, tutorial 1 and tutorial 2. This has pretty much all the info that you need to set up this IBM Cloud account, Internet of Things platform, blah blah blah, to set up the application that I'm going to show. Okay, so I was showing you a few services at IBM Watson, and so the IoT services is the one that I'm using. I'm using some other services also, which I'll talk about later. So one is IoT service, which will allow me to capture data from my phone, which will be sending it over MQTT, right? And this application, the APK that some of you have downloaded, which I'm using, is also something which has been created by IBM guys as a test project. Okay, they don't regularly maintain it, and it's not reliable. It's just meant for testing and playing around with. So that APK already knows that it has to talk to the IBM server, and this APK, once I've set up my cloud account, set up my IoT starter, etc., I will have to put in the APK some coordinates, my organization ID, username, password, stuff like that. And that's how you will be able to push data to the cloud. Okay. Now, so let me show you the IoT Watson IoT platform, IBM Watson IoT platform, right? I told you that the IBM Watson has I have to relog in just a second. Okay, meanwhile, guys, there will be a poll which will be released very soon on the same tool, the Zoom tool that you're using. So please make sure that you answer those simple 2-3 questions about how you like the session. I need to launch this again. So catalog is where all the services are available. Then there is something known as dashboard. So you can always access this by going to IBM Cloud, and on the left side, on the top, you will find dashboard. Dashboard gives you the list of different services that you are using currently in your application. Okay. Be very careful. If you attach your credit card to any of these cloud services, and if you have deployed an application, they may start charging you depending upon what rules you have set based on each service that you're using. And if you left something running, and then data is coming into your system, you will be in a situation where you will be charged a lot of money. So be very careful with these cloud systems. Okay, so I am using the Internet of Things platform. So I just want to show you the user interface of the IoT platform. Oops, I just logged into this. Oops, something wrong. The IBM platform is not letting me log into my account. Let me do one thing. I'll just close all the windows and restart this. Okay, Ashwin is asking me, can you help me on this? Ashwin, wait, I don't want your phone data on my cloud account just yet. I want to show my demo first, then we'll see. Okay. So I'm relogged into my cloud account. I'll go to dashboard. This already gives me summary of all the services I'm using. I'll just click on services. Click on Internet of Things platform. The platform is active. Launch from here. This is interesting. Okay, for some reason the dashboard part of this is not re-logging in, but I can show you. Okay, so that's a good suggestion. Someone said clear the cache. That's a good idea. So I'll just log out from here and I'll just log in from the incognito window. We'll just do one more try with that. Otherwise, we will go to the application part of it, which we can still access. Just give me 30 more seconds. Okay, services, IoT platform. So let's try one more time to launch this. Should have launched earlier also because I'm not signed out. I'm able to access all the other sections of the website. So we'll try this again. Let me move first to show you the main part of it, where I have given the application logic. So in the dashboard, there is another service that I have used that is called the Node-RED service. And the Node-RED, as I said to you, is an application programming environment which helps me create interesting cloud applications using all blocks-based programming environment. So I will show you that now. We will launch that. So this is the Node-RED programming environment. It is running out of the IBM cloud. And as I told you, this thing has an interesting sort of layout to it. I'll show you a very simple flow. So you see on the left-hand side, there are all these different blocks which are available. These are essentially JavaScript blocks. You don't have to write any piece of code. You can simply drag and drop these blocks here, and then they do various different things. So in my case, I have already set up the phone app, and I have already set it up to talk to the IBM Watson IoT platform. Now, even though we are not able to log into the dashboard of that IBM Watson IoT platform for some reason, and sometimes you will find these kind of issues coming in when you're using various different cloud platforms because they keep on changing a lot of different services at the back end. So there are sometimes downtimes as well. But the app is still accepting data from my phone. So what I'll do is I have a block in this system, which is called IBM IoT in, and I can configure it to receive data from my phone. Okay, so I am running this app that I have shown you on my phone, and I have configured the various settings that many of you were asking me, right? Device ID, the organization ID, and stuff like that, which are all the things which the IBM Watson platform uses for authentication. So all of that is provided by the IBM Watson IoT platform. The dashboard is of which we are not able to see right now, but it still exists. So this block that I pulled in from the left-hand side is a block which lets me read the data from my phone. So this is coming in from that Watson IoT platform, and I can receive data from my phone. And this other green colored box that you can see on the right hand side, this is a debug box. So whatever messages or whatever data this box receives, the first one, if I connect it with a simple wire, it will be pushed to the second box. This is how this entire programming environment works. Very, very intuitive. I'm not writing any pieces of code. And anything that goes into this green box will be displayed on the debug window on the right hand side. So I'll just deploy this very, very simply. And for those of you who have gotten that app installed, what I did is I'm not now going to start sending data from my phone. It'll route through the IBM Watson IoT service, and then we should be able to see it on the screen in the debug window. So if I show you the architecture block diagram again, this is the dashboard, IBM Watson dashboard, which we were not able to open, but it still is running in the backend. But it is going to push the data coming from my phone into this programming environment. Okay. So first we will receive data from my phone on the right side, and then we will see if we can have any one of your phone's data also come in there. So I'm just starting the phone app at my end. As soon as it's done, you will start data streaming in. Just give me a second. Okay. Do you see on the right hand side? So in the right hand side, all of these debug messages have started coming in. And this is essentially reporting data coming in from my phone. So look at one data sample that came. Acceleration in X, Y, and Z direction, the roll, pitch, and yaw coming in from the gyroscope. GPS I have switched off, heads 0, latitude, longitude, and heading speed, and a time span, right? So all of this data is continuously pouring in. Even if I delete my the older data, it'll start pushing in new data, right? All of this data is coming in live. Now, this is a simple flow, I'm just dumping this data on the right hand side window. Let's analyze one particular data sample. So look at this and I have kept my phone flat on the table surface. Okay, I'm not moving it. It's sitting flat on the table surface. Acceleration in X is 0. Acceleration Y is also 0. Acceleration in the Z direction is 9.81. Why is it 9.81? The phone is lying flat on the table. Gravity, absolutely right. So the force of gravity is still acting on the phone, and acceleration due to gravity is 9.8. And this is what basically it is showing, right? And if I move my phone, let's say if I put it upright, like it was shown in the picture, this picture, my phone is standing upright, then what will happen? Acceleration due to gravity in Z direction will be 0, X will also be 0, but Y it will be around 9. Let's see whether that happened. So I will delete all this data. Let's see what the new data looks like. Let's look at the new data. Yeah. So oops, I'll switch it off. Otherwise, it'll just keep updating. So you see, look at this data packet, for example. You have acceleration in x, which is 0, acceleration in y, which is 9, acceleration z, which is 0, right? So y became 9 because I've kept it straight up. Now let's look at another interesting flow that I built. So I am going to delete this flow. So look at this flow here. In this flow, I have dragged and dropped some more blocks. So after receiving the data from the sensor, from this IBM IoT app, I have inserted a function block. This function block is one of the blocks there in the processing area. If I double click on this, it allows me to write a simple piece of code. Now this is a piece of JavaScript code. So whatever data I'm receiving from the sensor, and remember it is showing me all sorts of data, X, Y, Z direction data. It is showing me roll, pitch, and yaw, all of that. So when I'm now analyzing it, I've thrown away all the other data and I'm only retaining acceleration due to Y. Okay, so if you look at this, only looking at acceleration due to Y. We can also just see it here. Yeah. So you see these data packets, these only have acceleration due to Y, and I've kept my phone straight up, so it's around 9 time frame. Right? Okay, so look at this simple application that I've built. I have extracting the data, only looking at acceleration due to gravity in Y, and then I'm doing a simple text. I'll measure if the data is, let me just break this connection here. Yeah. I will measure if the data is greater than, sorry, if is less than equal to 7. Okay. So if the data is less than equal to 7, then I will pass on that event to the next stage. And from there, I will issue a message. So if you see this particular block, it lets me create a message. So it says if the acceleration has exceeded, then it should mention as a message is saying, wow, is your phone falling? Probably the acceleration is this. So what is this app simply doing? As soon as my phone starts to fall, it should send me a trigger. It's a very, very crude, I would even say a too much oversimplified application to detect if a person is falling, at least the phone in this case. Okay. But you can build interesting algorithm using the same accelerometer data to really detect if a person is falling. So in this case, as soon as the acceleration goes, less than 9, less than 7 in the Y direction, I'm going to issue a trigger just to approximate it. Okay, so right now we are not seeing any debug message on the right hand side because I have kept my phone upright and the acceleration due to gravity is 9. As soon as I dip my phone, the acceleration due to gravity has now reduced, gone below 0, sorry, gone below 7. Now I should start getting messages. Okay, so I restarted the app and started receiving the messages. Yep. And in this, when I was moving my phone around, the values crossed below 9 and I should have received an email because I have a, if you see here on this side, I have a block which also lets me send emails. Okay, so I'll just, let me open up my email account, refresh. And while I was moving all my phone around, I got emails with this message, "Wow, is your phone falling?" Right. So IBM Watson also has services wherein not just emails, but you can send push notifications to your phone. And a lot of interesting stuff can further be done with it, right? And for all your debug messages, you can listen to it here as well. So I kept my phone upright, don't get any debug message. Soon as I tilt my phone, I get a message on the right side which says, "Wow, is your phone falling?" Pull my phone back up so I don't receive any further message, delete this. Then I pushed it back again, and then I'll again receive when I tilt it down, right? So very, very simple up here. I got it. Right? Wow, is your phone falling? So very, very simple application. And all being done with the help of this pre-managed services provided by the IBM Watson platform. I have not written any single piece of code, guys. I have just dragged and dropped these blocks, and I have written only one line of JavaScript code here, which says, you know, return, take an absolute, apply a math absolute function on the acceleration data received from Y, and push it onto the next block. And then I have just issued an email trigger. I can issue a Twitter figure. I can send it back to the field using MQTT back to the phone to do something else, so on and so forth. Unfortunately, I could not show you the IBM Watson IBM platform's configuration window, which also allows me to drop lots. For some reason, their service is down very clearly because I try to log in through my account. All other services work, but this one doesn't work. So hopefully this gave you some flavor of this, how powerful these cloud applications are, how quickly you can build interesting web applications. Hopefully you also get a flavor for the architecture for a typical IoT application, right? We are saying that you must have the accelerometer, you must have the sensor or the layer one device connected to the cloud. In this case, we have directly connected it to internet because the device supports GSM and hence you're talking through the mobile network. But let's say I had a device which had only Bluetooth capability. It did not have capability to directly talk to the internet. In that case, you will need a gateway, which I said layer 2 device, to first push data from layer 1 to layer 2 device. And from there, it will connect to the cloud. And on the cloud, there are many interesting services available for us to capture data from the field, for us to build simple programs. What I showed you was a GUI based program, but you can write Python scripts, you can write detailed Java programs. These cloud platforms provide you with tons of different types of programming environments. And they also provide you a lot of ready-made code, like the one that I use for sending email, right? I have not written any single piece of code there. I just dragged and dropped two blocks. Now I'll just take a few questions, I think, and then we can probably close the session. So that said, does this take that much amount of time? No, Siddharth. I was restarting the application on my phone every time I was showing you that. And that's the reason it was taking so long. It's almost instantaneous. Can you choose the OS and the database on the platform while setting up the service? Yes. If you are setting up your own application, which means you are not relying on Internet of Things IoT platform, then you can use your own OS, then you can use your own stuff. But if you want to use their built-in service, like this IoT platform service that I am using, then you don't have option to choose the OS, database, etc. Then we don't even know what OS is running inside it. And as far as database is concerned, they give you a few options. They have something known as Cloudent, which is based on open source stuff. It's a NoSQL based document style database. Then you have other typical SQL types of databases also available. So give you 2-3 options. You can choose from some of them. Please provide us with this PPT. I'm sure the FutureSkills team will take care of it. Sandeep says, please suggest the best Arduino kit and Raspberry Pi kit. So Sandeep, it's not very important as to what hardware you use. What is important is to make sure, number one, whether you are looking at the business use case for IoT. Number two, whether you are thinking about how much data you need to transmit, hence what kind of device you need. What should be the frequency of the data that you need to send to the cloud? Do you really need a powerful device? Can you live with a smaller, cheaper, lower cost microcontrollers? Do you really need to have, so you also need to worry about power efficiency, so on and so forth, right? So when you ask me, suggest the best kit, I cannot give you an answer as to what is the best, because different ones are better suited for different types of applications. Okay. Having said that, for playing around with different stuff, if you want to tinker around, some of the devices that I've really enjoyed, which are very easy to use, are from this company called M5 Stack. Okay. So they are powered by this processor called ESP32. It's a dual core processor, very nice set of features, and it has Wi-Fi built into it. It has Bluetooth also built into it. And there's this company called M5 Stack, which creates some really interesting products, all for hobbies, for people to play with. Some Indian retailers have started selling it. So probably you can do some search and figure out. Okay. What are the prerequisites to learn IoT for those who are from non-software engineering background? Rajesh, you need some basic programming knowledge. So let's say if you want to take up our course, it does not rely on you being a software expert, but you should be able to write some basic simple programming modules. You should have some handle on C programming language, because for the layer 1 devices, which is all your IoT devices, low power devices which are connected to sensors, you will need C programming language primarily. For programming gateway devices, you could mostly use Python or C itself, or many of them support JavaScript. For cloud, again, JavaScript is becoming very popular. It's very easy to use. And JavaScript, you can write both cloud facing modules as well as, server facing module as well as client facing module. So JavaScript for cloud. And then for analytics and machine learning, those kind of things, Python is something which is becoming very popular. Okay. So I know for especially for people who will be coming from non-software background, it may be too overwhelming to think how many different programming languages we need to learn. But having said that, guys, this is a, I would say, systems field. So there are a lot of pieces to learn in this. Can we use R instead of Python for analytics? Sure, R is also very popular. Both are easy. By the way, because some of you are asking about analytics, the further thing that one can do after shipping this phone data to the IBM cloud, which I had done in the background, which I don't have time to show you how to do it, but is to write a Python script to analyze this data which is stored on the cloud. So this is a Python script which I had written to analyze the data on the cloud. And so I pulled in the data. I did some simple summary statistics on the data. This is the average value, this is standard deviation, blah blah blah. I was able to draw plots of the accelerometer data that came in. So this is, acceleration in the Z direction. This is acceleration in X and Y. And then I ran a very simple, what do you call, anomaly detection algorithm. Anomaly is something which happens in IoT situation when a sensor reports a data sample which, let's say, is not expected. Something wrong has happened in the field. That is called anomaly. So by looking at continuous stream of data, you can run simple algorithms to detect if an anomaly happens. So if you see here, I have captured the data, plotted it, and then after running my anomaly detection algorithm, a simple one, I'm able to pinpoint where there were specific peaks and troughs in the data that came in, and then I can tell somebody on the business side, oh, something wrong happened in the field. At this point in time, this accelerometer data had peaked up. So please make sure that you can go back in the field and check up. Okay, so I think I covered mostly what I wanted to cover, except that I couldn't show you the Watson setup dashboard. But what I encourage everybody to do is please make sure that you can take up this free course. This free course is a pretty good first step for you to get started on IoT. You can also then take up more evolved courses. You can choose what kind of specializations you want to take up in the field of IoT, and then you can grow from there further. So we can formally close the session now. So those of you who want to leave can leave, but I'm still getting a couple of queries, so I'll just probably try to answer for 5 more minutes, just 5 more minutes. At 8, we will actually just close this, but others, please keep moving.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ashish. Yeah, you can continue for 5 minutes, but a big thank you for everybody for taking out time. We will share the link for the recording in the thank you email that will come to you. So just look out for that. And Ashish, you can continue for another 5 minutes.
Thanks, Vaishali. Okay, so one important question Alok asked: do we get APIs for connecting our own Android apps to IBM Cloud? Absolutely, Alok. So, as I said, let's look at this diagram again. The IBM Watson platform receives data coming in from any MQTT client, and MQTT is an open protocol. So, absolutely, this is an open protocol. If you read up the IBM Watson documentation, you will know what kind of message structure you need to construct from your app, whether it's app running on phone or running on your own IoT device. It could be an Arduino, it could be an ESP32, anything. And you can connect those and push data to the IBM cloud. Yeah. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of thank yous and appreciation. Thanks a lot, guys. Also, thanks to you to staying on with me for close to 3 years. A lot of people are still on the chat. I'm very excited to see that. Sir, do you know about React Native? So React Native basically is the piece which will allow you to build interesting web applications, right? So React Native is a good framework that you can learn to build web applications. The way it works for IoT is, if you want to build your own infrastructure to be able to build those graphical dashboards for an IoT application, then you could use React to do that. So React comes in there. Which are network simulation open source tools available to experiment other than the Cisco Packet Tracer? Pranav, this very much depends on what kind of networking protocol that you're using. I don't know about the Cisco Packet Tracer, but which network are we trying to simulate, right? That's the main question here. So again, then even before that, which network do you want to use for IoT? So you should read up more on the different networking options which are available in case of IoT, right? So that itself is a detailed topic, which we can take up some time, but you should check out a class of networking protocols called LPWAN, low power wide area networks. LPWAN is what is very significant for IoT. So this is just the category. Within this, there are many like LoRaWAN, blah, blah, blah. So which network to use for IoT is itself a question that depends on what particular application you're using it for. No, I'm not giving any session on React Native. Thanks. This is the last question I'll take up because a lot of you asked earlier, which is a very good question. So, which particular cloud service should I use if I want to try an IoT application? So, guys, in cloud, a lot of things keep changing. So, to say that today one is the best, tomorrow somebody else will come up with some features. And that's the thing with cloud. When you use any cloud service, make sure that you are used to it probably getting downtimes because they are continuously updating stuff in the backend. So in my personal opinion, AWS is the easiest to use as a developer because it has tools and very widely used, easy to use tools, very wide documentation, and it is also structured in a way that it's easy from a developer's perspective to actually use it. One downside with that, or if you consider it a downside, is that even if you want to use a free account, you will have to give your credit card entry. And a lot of my friends, for example, don't like to give the credit card details upfront. Although you can set rules in AWS so that it will not consume without your knowledge, but you need to be a little careful about that. That is one. But AWS from developers perspective is much easier to use. On the other hand, Azure is also very powerful. A lot of similar features on Azure side, and a lot of pre-packaged ready-made services that you can use, a lot of pre-packaged ready-made reference applications that can be used. So both AWS Azure are good. Azure slightly more sort of business friendly, AWS more developer friendly. And then IBM in that sense is something that I use because it's easy to very quickly get set up and running. But I would say that AWS and Azure do have way more options for IoT related applications. Yeah. All right. So with that, let me end this session. Thank you very much. I hope you had some uh, clue about what to do about IoT, how to go from here. Again, I think the course that we have is a very nice first step. It's free. Please take it up. And it is a certified course, there's certification attached to it. Hope you enjoyed that course, and I really wish you all the best in your IoT journey. This is a good career option. It's a career option which is on the rise. It needs a lot of system thinking, and it leads you to know a lot of different things. All the best. Have great fun. Bye bye.